Castles, these towering structures evoke images of knights' battles and a time long past. But castles were more than just romantic backdrops. They were powerful symbols of authority, built to protect and project dominance. In a world often defined by conflict, castles offered security and a strategic advantage to those who held them. They were the ultimate statement of power and control in the medieval landscape. Early castles were simple affairs, often built from wood and earth. However, as warfare evolved and technology advanced, so too did the design of these fortifications. Over centuries, castles transformed from rudimentary structures into complex fortresses, each new addition a testament to the ingenuity of medieval architects and the ever-present threat of attack. The evolution of castle defenses is a fascinating journey through military history. It is a story of innovation, adaptation, and the constant struggle between attack and defense. From the earliest Motte and Bailey castles to the mighty fortresses of the late medieval period, each stage of development reveals a new chapter in the story of these enduring symbols of power. The earliest castles, known as Motte and Bailey castles, emerged in the 11th century. These fortifications were a far cry from the imposing stone structures we often associate with castles today. Instead, they relied on simplicity and strategic location for defense. The motte, a large mound of earth, formed the heart of the castle. Atop this mound stood a wooden tower, offering a commanding view of the surrounding countryside. The bailey, an enclosed courtyard at the foot of the motte, housed workshops, stables, and other essential buildings. While rudimentary, Motte and Bailey castles proved remarkably effective. The elevated position of the motte provided a significant defensive advantage, allowing defenders to rain arrows or other projectiles down on attackers. The surrounding ditch or moat further hindered assaults, forcing attackers to navigate a treacherous obstacle before reaching the castle walls. Despite their advantages, Motte and Bailey castles had limitations. Their wooden structures were vulnerable to fire, and the relatively simple defenses could be overcome by determined attackers. As the need for stronger, more resilient fortifications grew, a new era of castle construction dawned, the age of the stone castle. The transition from timber to stone marked a significant turning point in castle design. Stone, far more durable and resistant to fire than wood, offered a new level of protection. This shift, beginning in the 12th century, led to the construction of castles that were larger, stronger, and infinitely more imposing. Stone castles were not simply larger versions of their wooden predecessors. They incorporated innovative architectural features designed to withstand increasingly sophisticated siege tactics. Towers, now built of stone, soared to greater heights, offering wider views and more formidable platforms for archers. The use of stone also allowed for the construction of more elaborate gatehouses. These heavily fortified entrances often featured multiple layers of defense, including portcullises, drawbridges, and murder holes, through which defenders could rain down boiling oil or other unpleasant surprises on attackers. The adoption of stone transformed castles from temporary strongholds into enduring symbols of power. These fortresses, built to withstand the test of time and the fury of siege warfare, would dominate the medieval landscape for centuries to come. Stepping inside a medieval stone castle was like entering a labyrinth designed to slow, trap, and ultimately repel attackers. Every element, from the winding approach to the placement of windows and arrow slits, played a crucial role in the castle's defense. The outer curtain wall, often several meters thick, formed the first line of defense. Its height and sheer mass presented a daunting obstacle to attackers, while its construction from carefully fitted stone blocks made it incredibly resistant to battering rams and other siege engines. Along the curtain wall, arrow slits, narrow openings offering archers protected firing positions, were strategically placed to create overlapping fields of fire. Machicolations, projecting platforms built into the wall tops, allowed defenders to drop rocks, boiling oil, or other projectiles directly onto attackers below. Gatehouses, often the most heavily defended part of the castle, were masterpieces of medieval military engineering. They typically featured multiple gates, each protected by a portcullis, a heavy wooden or metal grille that could be lowered quickly to block access. Murder holes in the ceiling provided another line of defense, allowing defenders to target attackers trapped within the confined space of the gatehouse. Section 5. The Art of Siege Warfare. Breaching the walls. Attacking a well-defended castle was a daunting and dangerous undertaking. Sieges could last for months, even years, and often involved a combination of brute force, cunning strategy, and psychological warfare. Early siege tactics were relatively crude, relying heavily on starvation and intimidation. Attackers would surround a castle, cutting off its supply lines and hoping to force a surrender through hunger and despair. However, as castle defenses grew more sophisticated, so too did the methods employed to overcome them. The development of siege engines such as battering rams, catapults, and trebuchets marked a significant escalation in siege warfare. These powerful machines could hurl massive stones or other projectiles with incredible force, capable of breaching even the thickest castle walls. Mining was another tactic employed by attackers. This dangerous and time-consuming process involved digging tunnels beneath the castle walls, hoping to collapse a section of the wall or gain access to the castle's interior. Defenders, however, were not helpless against these threats. They developed counter-tactics such as countermining and the use of fire to weaken siege engines or collapse enemy tunnels. Section 6. Concentric castles, masterpieces of defense. The constant back and forth between attackers and defenders led to a revolution in castle design, the emergence of concentric castles. These fortresses, appearing in the late 13th century, represented the pinnacle of medieval military architecture. Unlike earlier castles, which often relied on a single line of defense, concentric castles featured multiple layers of walls, each positioned to provide overlapping fields of fire. This design created a series of killing zones, forcing attackers to navigate a deadly maze of fortifications. The outermost curtain wall, lower than the inner walls, provided a clear line of sight for defenders stationed on the inner walls and towers. If attackers breached the outer wall, they would find themselves trapped in a killing ground, exposed to fire from the higher inner defenses. At the heart of the concentric castle stood the keep, the strongest and most heavily defended structure. This tower served as the last refuge for the castle's inhabitants, a place to make a final stand should all other defenses fall. Concentric castles, with their intricate defenses and layered design, proved incredibly difficult to capture. They represented the culmination of centuries of architectural innovation and a testament to the enduring human instinct to protect and defend. Section 7. Life under siege, a fight for survival. While castles are often romanticized, the reality of life during a siege was far from glamorous. For those trapped inside a besieged castle, whether lord or peasant, life became a desperate struggle for survival. Food and water shortages were constant threats. As supplies dwindled, rations would be strictly controlled, and the castle's inhabitants would be forced to endure hunger and thirst. Disease, often spread by poor sanitation and overcrowding, posed another deadly danger. The psychological strain of siege warfare was immense. The constant fear of attack, the deafening noise of siege engines pounding the walls, and the sight of comrades falling in battle took a heavy toll on the morale of even the most hardened soldiers. Despite the hardships, those inside a besieged castle were not entirely helpless. They could harry attackers with arrows and other projectiles, launch daring counterattacks, and even attempt to negotiate with the enemy. Survival depended on a combination of courage, resourcefulness, and a healthy dose of luck. Section 8. Gunpowder arrives, the end of an era. The arrival of gunpowder on the battlefield in the 14th century marked a turning point in military history, one that would ultimately spell the end for the castle as a dominant military structure. Cannons capable of hurling heavy projectiles with incredible force and accuracy could reduce even the strongest castle walls to rubble. The once impregnable defenses of concentric castles proved no match for the destructive power of gunpowder weapons. Walls, once symbols of strength and security, became liabilities, offering little protection from cannon fire. As the effectiveness of traditional castle defenses waned, military architects adapted, designing fortifications better suited to withstand gunpowder weapons. These new fortresses, lower and more angular, featured thicker walls and sloped ramparts designed to deflect cannon fire. While castles continued to be built and even occupied for centuries after the arrival of gunpowder, their role in warfare diminished. The age of the castle, once synonymous with military might, had come to an end. Section 9. A lasting legacy, castles in modern times. Though their military significance has long since faded, castles continue to captivate our imaginations. These enduring symbols of the medieval past have left an indelible mark on our architecture, literature, and popular culture. Today, many castles have been preserved as historical landmarks, offering glimpses into a bygone era. Tourists flock to these majestic structures, eager to explore their towers and dungeons, to walk in the footsteps of knights and kings. The influence of castles can be seen in modern architecture, from the fairy tale turrets of Victorian mansions to the imposing facades of government buildings. In literature and film, castles continue to serve as settings for tales of adventure, romance, and intrigue. Castles may no longer dominate the battlefield, but their legacy lives on. They remind us of a time when power was measured in stone and mortar, when life was often brutal and short, and when these mighty fortresses stood as beacons of hope and security in a world often defined by chaos and conflict.